We want to take a moment to welcome everyone to the Watch This Shit podcast. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. My name is Seneca, the movie professor. With this podcast, we're going to give you the definitive decision on whether you should go see a new movie or not. It's real easy. If we say, watch this shit, go out and enjoy some good cinema. If we say, don't watch this shit, avoid it as you would taking melatonin and then putting on a grotesque horror audio track. Or don't. You can do what you want. It may be fun, or it may see you running from Scary Terry in your dreams, bitch. You don't want to listen to us. You put your life in your own hands. The writer strike, coupled with the growing dissatisfaction of the special effects companies, has seen the start of this year being weaker than any that I can remember. By this time last year, I already had 4 or 5 great movie outings. The Mario movie had dropped, Creed 3, John Wick 4, and Scream 6. The best movie that I've seen this year is a movie that came out at the end of last year, American Fiction. Damn, we are in a bad state. Let's hope today's review movie can give us the much needed shot of adrenaline we need for the cinema. Late Night with the Devil. Sounds like the name of the sex tape you would use for your evil ex-wife. The story is actually crazy as hell. A late night television host, a rival of Johnny Carson, in order to pull ahead in the ratings, attempts an unorthodox approach. His grand scheme is to play out an exorcism live on his after prime hours talk show. The movie plays this as if this is the recording of that broadcast, along with behind the scenes footage that expands the story of what happens. Of course, the show goes off the rails as who would really try to openly dare the devil to fuck with them on national TV? When you learn the rest of the story, you realize how stupid this is. The host is quite possibly deep into the occult, but still seeks to tempt the forces of the underworld. Will this gamble pay off and he pull ahead in the ratings for Sweeps Week? Or will it have the effect we already know it will and end in tragedy? First thing I want to discuss is the filming convention that is used here. It is technically a found footage film. More than that, they used the grainy style of television in the 70s to realistically portray how it would look at that time. I love this take. For this alone, I'm already tempted to say, watch this shit. The film quality is grainy with those signs of film degradation that was commonplace during early broadcasts. Even when they do the commercial breaks, they have bumpers that would have really played if the show aired as they said it did, right? The after these messages, we'll be right back things. The ratio switches to the TV format of old. A lot of similarities can be made between the way this movie looks and what they did in the holdovers. I like this type of gimmick as it sets the movie apart from what other movies are trying to do. It gives it a sense of oldness, even though it is a new release. Smart choice. I like the direction. I love the cinematography. David Dashkashalane, I butchered his name, but you know what I'm talking about. The guy that is in the even creepier version of Paul Dano. He's the protagonist of the film, if you can call him that. He plays Jack Delroy, the host of the show. The opening gives a long-winded explanation of who he is and what leads up to the events of the movie. I don't like the way the film played that part. They almost started like it's a documentary on the guy. They go into his whole backstory of starting the show, his relationship with his wife, and everything they dealt with during her illness leading up to her death. This opening doc spans about 6 years and goes on for more time than I would care to have spent. It probably was too complicated to add the information in naturally during the main part of the movie that takes place during one episode of a talk show. That's the best part of the film, though. The opening starts us down a path that plays out quickly. David is less slimy here at first glance than I've seen him in any other film. So points for that. He's acting because he is fucking slimy. I don't know him in real life, but just his look. Anyway, he has to be at least somewhat charismatic as one of those hosts we've become so accustomed to these days. The Fallons, Kimmels, and the long list of people that have made careers doing impersonations of Johnny Carson. Hmm. It's crazy that's a whole ass job. Be Johnny Carson. Damn TV, you've been lazy for a very long time. Using the setting to its fullest allows the movie to slowly introduce supporting characters as guests or studio audience members brought into the conversation by those guests. They do a tonight on segment to start the whole thing off. E- Everything they did, the way they set the shit up like a real show was brilliant. Just thinking back on it makes me want to watch it again. Even the documentary part is necessary. I see why it's necessary because there are hints of what's to come everywhere. Back to the guests before I start talking about the hints in slight detail. I'll do that in a moment. There are three that are of note. The first is a medium that claims to have psychic powers. He pulls a couple readings, which the next guest, the second guest, the skeptic, tries to discredit. That's his whole thing. Though he does magic, he outright says it's all fake. Smoke and mirrors with some hypnosis for susceptible people to be pulled into the act. Then later in the night, that's when the real main attraction takes hold. He has a harder time convincing himself and others that his initial claim is still valid. When he sees right in front of him and everyone else, a little girl seems to grow, her voice changes, and speaks to them as if it's a whole nother person. For a moment, I couldn't tell if it was makeup or if they put a guy in a chair dressed up as the little girl with the wig on. I think it was the latter, but I'm still not 100% certain. I didn't look it up. I didn't look into it because some of it may have been my own brain bridging a layer for the movie. That's a good use of the audience's imagination if you can get it to work that way. Now, for the hints. Throughout the film, static or cuts happen and different demonic faces can be seen in brief, very brief glimpses. I love that this is so fast. Blink if you miss it moments. Someone went the extra step to sell this thing. There was a point when the spiritual pressure in the area increased and it started affecting the equipment on set. The skeptic, of course, tried to discredit this as being a Halloween ratings grab, but as the events went on during the night, they, of course, increased in intensity. The faces were the best, but they also found ways to weave bits of story in there. There was a cult that had a real situation that led into why the little girl may have been possessed. This was worked into the plot well as the novelist, which was the third guest, had been working with her, introduced all the information to support her publishing of that book. And as for the little girl that might be inhabited by the demon, it was played great. She would look right into the camera during her intro, as if she was peering into the soul of everyone watching the presentation, even peering into the soul of the real life people like myself that were watching the movie. We had a real never ending story situation here. It was creepy on a few levels, and it worked so well. Too bad after her first segment, they dropped this whole act, or someone changed the direction and told her to stop looking. I know it was a mistake or an error because when David's character told her initially to stop looking at the cameras, she kept doing it. When it would switch from camera one to camera two, she would instinctively or otherworldly turn her head to be peering right into that lens. Even if the conversation was directed at her, she would slowly turn to talk to the person who asked her a question. Then she would turn right back to peering into the souls of audience members. I hate it was dropped, as it was my second favorite trick of the movie. Everything wasn't perfect, unfortunately. Like I said, the intro needed some work as it was not seamless in its attempt to segue into the real story, the meat of the story. It was clunky. Also, if we were watching the broadcast just as it was when it originally aired, who went back and spliced in the behind the scenes footage in order to see what was going on between takes to make it a complete narrative? That kind of thing, if you think about it too long, it makes the whole setup fall apart. It didn't kill my enjoyment of the film, but it did kind of take me out of the premise. The other thing was, of course, dropping the girl looking at the cameras. I just wanted the details, so I won't do it any further. You get the point. They had a great idea, and they just squandered it. The worst offender may be the ending. It was so, ugh. It made no sense in the way the film was set up. I was hoping for something a bit more cerebral from how it was trending, where it was headed. Then it just fell off a cliff. From what is shown at the end, there is no way it was filmed that way on a 70s late night talk show. Remember, the whole premise, the setup, it was just abandoned to go on a look into the mind of a man possibly going insane or maybe being demonically possessed. And it doesn't work with what we were shown. There's no way there will be footage of what's happening in his brain. Come on now. Don't leave what brought you to the dance, not when it worked so well. Also, when the special effects are called on to do more than just simple tricks, it gets a little bit ugly. But for a low budget film, that's forgivable. I wouldn't want them to do more. Actually, I would want them to do less. Don't even go big. Keep it simple and practical. That fits the setting more. When they tried to do extra CGI, it just didn't hold up. Final verdict. Watch this shit. Shudder, yeah, the streaming service, set us up with a good horror movie that automatically looks timeless from the way that it was shot. Add in a compelling story, and it should be on every horror fan's list of movies to watch. You will have to forgive the opening and the ending, but the middle is incredible. Think of it almost like a slice of pizza that is badly burned just on the first and last bite, but the middle was so good it was worth it. Almost makes you wish you would have just thrown the first and last bite away. But so glad what we got in between was amazing. Thank you for listening to another episode of Watch This Shit. You come here for the realest take on new movies. So make sure you follow us so you're not left in the dark on whether you check out a movie or not. If you haven't seen this shit yet, what the fuck are you waiting for? We told you what to do. Now it's up to you to go do it. Check us out next time when we review Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And good day to you.